When I was about 18, I babysat two boys every day after school and sometimes on weekend nights when their parents went to concerts. Let's call them Drake, who was 11, and Josh, who was 13. This story happened on one of those Saturday nights. The parents left money for pizza, as they usually did, so when it was time to pick it up, Drake insisted on coming with me while Josh stayed home to keep playing video games. We locked the door behind us, grabbed the pizza, and were back in less than 15 minutes. Everything felt normal. Pizza, a movie, the kind of easy night that makes babysitting almost pleasant. It gets weird after that. It was fall, so it got dark early. The boys were getting sleepy during the movie, and I told them it was time for bed. They walked upstairs with barely a peep. Unusual, because Drake was normally the one who fought bedtime. The house had a second-story family room, so from the kitchen, I could see the upstairs hallway and the bedroom doors. A little while later, I noticed Drake standing at the end of the hallway. He looked wrong. Pale, spaced out, like someone had peeled him apart and put him back together slightly off. He called down my name and asked me to come upstairs for a minute. I felt this sudden, cold unease. Drake sounded terrified in a way I'd never heard from him. I went up the stairs and asked what was wrong. He pointed at a closet along the upstairs hallway and asked if I had opened it. Drake said he and Josh never opened that closet. He was shaking, his face was drained. Hearing him say that made my stomach drop. I want to be clear, Drake wasn't lying. Josh wasn't messing with us. I know both of those boys well. Josh would never pull a prank like that. He was quiet, sweet, and not confrontational. And I absolutely lock the front door when I leave and return. It was part of my routine because it's not my house. In fact, Drake told me as we were leaving for pizza that I didn't need to lock the door since the place was so close, but I insisted, and I did lock it. I tried to come up with a calm explanation to soothe Drake. I told him maybe the closet didn't latch properly and it popped open on its own. He insisted that had never happened and that it wasn't possible. He was rattled, and honestly, I was too, internally panicking but trying not to show it.
I didn't call the police. I called my boyfriend and kept him on the line while I searched the house. My heart was pounding as I checked each room and then the basement. Everything looked normal. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was either in the house with us or watching from outside. The house sits on a corner lot that borders the woods, and the main floor windows don't have curtains. For all I knew, someone could have been standing outside, peering in. Or worse, there could have been something inside I hadn't seen. Paranoia is a funny, useful thing in situations like that. I turned all the lights off and flattened myself on the couch to be as unseen as possible. I stayed like that, listening for the smallest sound until the parents came home about an hour later. I told them briefly what happened. The mother immediately blamed the cat, saying it probably pushed the door open. I love that family, and I didn't want to accuse anyone, but that explanation didn't make sense to me. Their cat was really mellow, always napping. That closet had a handle and a latch that didn't look like something a cat could force open. The boys were unsettled, and so was I. I went home that night with goosebumps, and I never babysat for them again. Even now, thinking about it gives me that same cold feeling. Why was the closet open? How did it open? Was someone outside watching us the whole time? I still don't have answers. Maybe it was nothing, an unlocked hinge, a draft, some simple mechanical quirk. But the look on Drake's face, the way he said they never opened the closet, and how terrified he was, that's not something I can easily explain away. It's one of those nights that stays with you, small details that add up into a memory that tastes like fear. So, if you ever hear a child tell you something that doesn't make sense, don't shrug it off right away. Kids notice things adults miss. That night, Drake noticed the thing none of us were supposed to see. And for that brief moment, whatever opened that closet made all of us feel small and vulnerable in a house we thought was safe.
In 2007, a friend and I, 17 and 13, were babysitting overnight at this huge split-level house out in the middle of nowhere. We'd done it plenty of times before. The family had a little girl, and for years they'd also kept an elderly grandmother who was near catatonic. On this trip, though, we learned the grandmother had died a few months earlier. The parents had moved a new, oversized bed into her small bedroom and told us we could sleep there if we wanted. It felt odd, but honestly, the bed looked a lot more comfortable than the couches we usually crashed on, so we agreed. That evening, the weather turned weird. About an hour before bedtime, the sky shifted to a sick, unnatural green. There was this low, electric hum in the air, like the world was holding its breath. Then the tornado siren started screaming. Within minutes, the patio furniture began slamming against the sliding glass door, glass rattling in its frame, and we grabbed the little girl and bolted for the bottom level of the house. The wind outside sounded like a freight train. Rain and debris beat against the siding. We lay low in the lowest room we could find and waited until the storm passed. When we came back up, shaken and adrenaline high, we got the child settled and tried to make the rest of the night calm. We did crafts in the living room, trying to laugh and act normal. Maybe an hour after the worst of it, something happened that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. Every single TV and radio in the house turned on at full volume. 1 second, everything was quiet. The next, static and talk and blaring noise filled rooms that had only moments ago been silent. The little girl slept through it mercifully, but we both scrambled through the house, slamming buttons, ripping cords from outlets, doing anything to cut the sound. One by one, we found and silenced them until only the old radio in the grandmother's room kept blaring. It was this antique piece, wooden, with an old dial, playing some warped, scratchy, nearly indecipherable song that sounded like it was from another century. The way it warped in and out of clarity made it creepier, like someone singing from the bottom of a well. My friend refused to go down and turn it off alone. She grabbed my sleeve and told me I had to go. So I went. Walking into that small room where the grandmother had died felt wrong in a way words don't do justice. The bed was huge against the little walls. The radio sat on the dresser, lights flickering, and the song crawled under my skin. I shut it off, and the sound cut like someone pinching off a vein. The silence after felt almost as loud as the noise had, thick and full of expectation. We didn't sleep in that bed. We spent the night on the living room couches, ragged and jumpy, flinching at every house creak and gust of wind. In the morning, the parents came back and we told them.
They shrugged and said maybe the storm had caused an electrical surge. Appliances act weird after big storms, they said. Maybe they were right. Maybe the power surge explanation fits all the facts. But here's the thing. Even if it was a surge, it didn't explain how all the devices flipped on at once at full volume and why that ancient radio was the last to go silent. It didn't explain the way the song on that old set sounded like someone whispering a name. It didn't explain the cold prickling you could feel in that little room, the way you notice the air is a half-degree colder and your skin tightens when you step into it. I'll admit, logic says storms do weird electrical things, but I'll also tell you this. For the rest of that week, I kept hearing a radio play a dissonant note in the back of my head. Every time I pass a dresser radio or walk past a small, quiet bedroom, I get that same uneasy feeling. The kind of feeling that says, even in a perfectly reasonable world, some nights are simply not for sleeping.
When I was 12, I was babysitting my baby brother. He was about 1, and we were living with my grandma in a small country town. This was the late 90s, and the house we moved into had a reputation. Years earlier, the top level had burned in a fire, and the locals liked to tell stories about it. My mom and grandma joked that I'd be happy there because I loved ghost stories and shows like Are You Afraid of the Dark? That kind of teasing made me feel like the house belonged in one of the books I read, but it also made the strange stuff that happened feel less explainable. There was a local girl, a few years older than me, who used to live in the same house. She told me a story that planted itself in my head. A little boy had died in the basement during the fire, and her uncle swore he'd seen a kid sitting on his bed at night. I didn't know what to believe, but the basement itself didn't help. It was unfinished concrete with long steps that seemed to pull the light away. At the bottom of the stairs, on the right, was a small room with a well in it. We were told never to open that room for safety reasons. Wells in the country aren't unheard of, but this one felt different. I never liked going down there. One daytime, I needed something from a box in the basement and asked my mom to come with me. We were both there together when out of nowhere, a loud smash echoed through the concrete room. A light bulb lay on the floor, broken, and somehow it had unscrewed itself. My mom ran up the stairs faster than I did. Even with an adult there, that moment felt wrong, like the house had hiccuped and left shards in its throat. The scariest thing happened when I was babysitting my brother alone. It was quiet. The kind of household quiet you get when everyone thinks the day has been calm and the little one is safe. Then I heard a loud, abrupt stomping on the basement stairs. 3 heavy, deliberate steps coming up toward the closed basement door. The hair on my arms went cold. I grabbed my baby brother out of his chair before my brain had fully processed what was happening and ran out the front door, down the street, and straight to a neighbor's house. I remember the panic like a physical thing, the way my chest felt too small for my breath, how my legs powered me down the lawn. I waited at the neighbor's until my mom got home. She was confused and maybe a little embarrassed, but she believed me. Not long after that night, my mom and I found our own place to live. Moving felt like an escape, like the house and its noises had finally stopped following us. But the memory didn't leave me. I still wonder what the stomping was. Was it the house settling? Some animal in a weird place? A prank? Or was it something else? Something connected to the stories about the fire and the little boy. I never opened that basement door again. Sometimes late at night, when a storm rolls through and the wind makes gutters clack like fingernails, I think about what would have happened if I'd stayed. Would I have heard those steps and stayed calm? Would I have opened the door to look and found nothing at all? Or something waiting in the dark? The not knowing is what keeps it with me. The memory of running barefoot in my socks down the road with a baby in my arms, and the echo of heavy steps on concrete that had no business, at least to me, existing.